Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to United's Opposition. Today, Marshall and I are talking about the fact checkers. Who fact checks the fact checkers and what are facts? And can you say fact checkers really fast? Fact check? I don't know. Here we go. Welcome back to United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. We're two people to discuss things going on in the world, politics, philosophy, religion, whatever, from two different sides of the coin. In fact, last week's was actually a really good one where we were really in opposition. If you want to go back and watch that one, we were talking a little bit. It kind of devolved. It was about World War III and what the future is, and kind of got back into the Israel-Palestinian talk, and it got pretty deep. But I noticed, Marshall, today you don't have your World War III background. I was going to come on singing "It's the End of the Way," although I probably shouldn't because we might get demonetized. Although we're not actually monetized yet. Speaking of being monetized, we are kind of being monetized because we are sponsored. We are sponsored by Freedom 2.0. Get your water from Freedom 2.0. When you drink this, it is literally, it says right there, bottled with liberal tears. It's not actually liberal tears, but every single bottle has a different saying. And I saw this one out there. I go, I'm doing this one today because I know, Marshall, I think your tears are literally in this bottle that I'm going to drink. So
it's 3% water. My tears.
Yeah, get your water from Freedom 2.0, freedom20.com. And let's get the... Oh, that is refreshing. That is refreshing. I love their bottles too. I've said this before, but I love their bottles. They're the nice, solid bottles. They don't tip over when you put them on a table or anything like that. So yeah, I can't sing that song. It's the end of the world, but yeah, here we are. You don't have that background behind you, but we were talking about what we want to talk about today, and we, excuse me, we initially thought maybe what's going on with the hurricane, and I was trying to go through and. I don't necessarily just bite on every single rumor that comes out on the right. And so hurricane, what's happening with the hurricane? So I looked, I've heard of all the stuff. I've seen all of my friends posting on Facebook. I've heard all the stuff of FEMA has no money because they gave all the money to, immigrant housing. They're stopping shipments of food going in. They're not letting drones fly around. FAA is restricting the drones and all kinds of stuff. And I went to look up stuff and there's some wording that's like, okay, like FAA is like, no, there's no restrictions. Anybody who's trying to help with search and rescue can fly the drones, which to me as a Part 107 FAA licensed drone pilot, I'm like, what I can see what they're not saying, which is they're not saying you can fly around to gather news. Like you can't, like it seems like they actually are restricting, but unless you're part of the rescue. So there's stuff there that started making me think, well, what is the fact? You get a fact checker fact checking something that said, no, that's not true. But what is it? So if FAA says, no, we're not doing any bans. You can, by saying you can fly in if you're part of the rescue, but that might also mean that you cannot fly in unless you're not part of the rescue. And that is a ban on airspace. So, going back to when Trump was in the debate and he said what quote, what was it from the governor of Virginia said this, and this, and they said, sorry, we need to fact check you. That's not wrong. That's not correct. It was the governor of West Virginia. It's like, okay, so technically he got the wrong, but the point was this was said by a governor and like, yeah, but fact check that was wrong. Where do you come in on that? I done a lot of talking at the beginning. Sorry about that, Marshall. Where do you come in on that, on fact checking the fact checkers?
Well, I think fact checking needs to be done judiciously and appropriately. It can't just be done for, to disrupt or to cast doubt on people. I don't think it should be done for that reason. But I do think that fact checkers also need to cite sources. And if they're citing a scholarly or verifiable source, then we need to pay attention to what the fact checkers are telling us, because a lot of politicians lie on both sides of the aisle.
Can I stop you right there?
Sure.
Can we both agree probably every politician lies?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they lie. They misrepresent the truth. They spin. They skew. They're never direct. They're certainly never certain or sure of anything. All their statements are conditional and non-committal and very vague because that's safe speech. And it's very annoying. It's like talking to a lawyer, too. Lawyers can also be very annoying to have a conversation with because their speech is very careful and you can never pin them down to anything. And you don't trust what you're hearing.
Do you
you
think the
know.
public is finally tired of that, or do you think that's what the public actually wants?
Well, I think the public wants to hear its narrative reinforced. So you can go out and tell lies. If they reinforce a certain narrative that you like, you're going to listen to the lies. You're just going to eat it up with a spoon, right or left. And that's what the public likes. And people have tapped into that, and they are now using that to sell page views and clicks and eyeballs on a TV screen, and then the ads that go with it, which is how they monetize and all of this stuff. So that's what it comes down to. If you tell people a lie that they like, a lie that they agree with, oh, they're going to love it. They're going to love you. But if you tell them something that is inconsistent with the narrative they have going in their head, the script they have in their head, they're going to be upset about that. They're not going to like you as much.
That's called cognitive dissonance, right?
Well, cognitive dissonance is when you encounter something a little bit more concrete, like a fact or something that contradicts the narrative that you have. And it creates a powerful sense of discomfort.
Does it have to be a fact, or can you be tricked into cognitive dissonance? Can someone lie to you with a narrative that makes you question your beliefs? Does it have to be a fact that causes cognitive dissonance?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be a fact. It can be anything that causes you to anything that contradicts your worldview, but you accept it or you believe it or you confront it and you can't dismiss it.
Yeah.
It could be a carefully crafted lie. It could be a deception. It could be a misperception or a mistake. Yes.
I feel a lot of Christian kids growing up in church end up going to college and being lied to, and that causes cognitive dissonance to them. That they're being fed a message, not necessarily facts, but it's being presented to them as facts because it's from an authority that I think causes cognitive dissonance and causes young Christians to fall to that. I think that's one of the negative aspects of higher education in general, in that higher education assumes that it's higher just because it is what it is. We are higher education, therefore we are not wrong. And you are wrong. And so I don't think that's necessarily a fact that causes cognitive dissonance. I think that a lot of times it's a narrative.
Sure, it can be. Academic institutions are very contentious. Academians often contend with one another quite vehemently, and academic journals are full of one person makes a claim, somebody else then comes along and tears it down. It's all part of the scientific method, and it's a thing called peer review.
Right.
The scientific method is very powerful.
And it's only powerful if the people choose to follow it. You I'm sure have seen that conservative group that went and wrote all of these false reports, all of these false things, got them peer reviewed and put into journals because what they were saying was in agreement with what were the different topics,
whatever the mainstream narrative is.
Whatever the mainstream narrative, they went and put it in peer-reviewed journals, and the peer-reviewed journal said, "Yep, that's scientific. That's good. That's good studying. Good." And it was all false, but because it agreed with the narrative, they all approved it. So I really don't have a whole lot of trust in the experts either.
Well, let me explain to you how that works. You can get most anything published in an academic journal, but then after it's published with your methodology, your results, your evidence, and so on, then other academics pick it apart, and then they come back with their rebuttals in their own journals and other things. So you can have a very lengthy process, sometimes a process that can last a century or more, but sometimes just months or a few years. It just depends on the pace of the research and how many academics are out there. But eventually it does correct. Science is self-correcting. The scientific method is self-correcting.
Here's what's funny. When science is not about observational science, purely observational, here is this chemical mixes with this chemical, we see this
that's
reaction.
science. Otherwise it's
observational
arts.
Science. It's observational science. That's different.
Well,
there's theoretical science. There's theoretical sciences. There's but observational science. It's like literally, and I think this is the problem that we have, is that people say all science is the same. All science is, it's expert opinion. You don't question the science. How many times have you heard that? You don't question the science. You don't question the science.
You're supposed to question the science.
Yeah.
But there's a methodology to it. You don't
Yes.
question the science by saying, well, I don't like that, so it must be false. No, you
Right.
challenge science
Except when you come
by
again,
running experiments and
and
then
I get
following
that,
where
but
the data leads you.
right, that is much more obvious in observational science, in physical observational science, and things that it's like you literally measure this and measure that. You observe it happening, you can measure, you can, but in social sciences, in stuff like psychology science and stuff like that we're talking, the sciences that we're talking about right now, of studies in, yeah, there are sciences, there are peer, but that kind of science is not the same as observational science. I can look at somebody wrote this paper and they posted it in this, and like, yeah, that doesn't make common sense, but it's science. Listen to the experts. Okay, 20 years from now, it's going to be, after it's been peer reviewed, it's going to come back and be like, yeah, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. It's like, yeah, I knew it wasn't a good idea back then because it didn't make common sense. And I think sometimes we forget, like, I think common sense it should be held in higher standard to some social sciences because it can be easily manipulated by saying, listen to the experts, they know what they're talking about, even though what that doesn't make sense, doesn't matter, the expert said it. No, I'm gonna question it and go with my common sense.
Yeah, so no. Here's where I'm going to disagree with you, because common sense may tell us one thing, but the data may tell us something else. And I'm sure if I spent enough time thinking about it, I could come up with a multitude of examples of where our common sense was absolutely wrong. I think a good example of that would be the common cold. Oh, it's cold outside, put a jacket, you'll get sick. Well, no, cold weather doesn't make you sick,
But what if the data what if the data is not provable this soon? What if the data,
Sure.
I think we should rely on common sense than new data. Especially,
sure,
again,
you as an individual are free to do so. Somebody says, here's a medication. It's only been out for a couple of years. We only have a couple of years testing. Yeah, I understand that. So here's the deal. Science is all about measuring things. Measure what is measurable, make measurable what is not. If it is not measurable, it is not science. Period. We're done. End of sentence. So if somebody is out there and they're like, well, I have an expert opinion, that's not science, because history is filled with that. I learned the science, if you will, of history. It's called historiography. They drilled this into our heads in college so much I was bored sick with it. But it is not science. And historians will sit there and disagree and go back and forth with each other. But the way you do history is you gather facts, you find data, things you can count. In fact, I had one professor talk about how he was in graduate school and he was desperately searching for something he could count because he wanted to get that degree. And the way to do that was to have data and present data, conclusion based on data. But even then, there's a whole discipline to it. You look for corroborating facts. You look for other things. You cross-check things. And eventually a narrative will kind of emerge. But even then, you can never be 100% certain because you're dealing with history, which is inherently subjective. And science, like you said, unless it's what you're calling observational science, unless we're measuring and counting things, you can never be 100% sure. Yeah. So nobody's going to tell you, or nobody should tell you, to surrender your reason to, if you will, a cult of science. But I do think in general, it pays to follow the science. But the scientists are not always correct because it can take a very long time for the scientific process to play itself out and arrive at a fact. The one good thing, though, is that it will eventually arrive.
It's just what damage is done.
Sure.
What damage is done before when people start making policy decisions made on new science that some expert is saying you should listen to me because I'm an expert in this field, and then policymakers start making policy based on that when they say it's follow the science, we're going to stand on the science, but that science is not proven yet. It's not. We have to be more careful than that, and I don't feel we are. I think I feel in general feel that the left wants people to trust science. Even new science that's unproven science. They want us to let go of our old thinking of things that we've thought this long and things have worked for all this time, and now they want to come and say, yeah, but this is how it should be. We're the experts. You should listen to us. And then we're going to make governmental policy to force you to live the way that we believe you should live based on this new science. It's It's tyranny of the experts.
Right, and it's educated guessing in many cases, and we see this commonly in things like economic policy, because economics, even though you're actually dealing with a lot of numbers, how those numbers are interpreted and so on, you end up with different schools of thought, different philosophies. You end up doing philosophy instead of science. And that's one of the issues when it comes to economics. And you're like, well, do we give people stimulus? Do we cut interest rates? When do we do it? Nobody really knows for sure. It's all educated guessing. And just like with the COVID vaccine, right? The scientists told us, hey, here's a vaccine. We need to take it. If we don't distribute the vaccine and get people to take it, there will be a higher death toll. Were they correct? Yes. But what are the long-term impacts of the vaccine? Probably nothing, but we can't be 100% sure. It might come out in 10, 20 years that there was an impact of the vaccine. And that's why I think it's important that we don't force people to do things that they don't want to do. We do live in a free country and a free society. And freedom means letting others do things you don't like. And that means saying no to getting a vaccine, perhaps. Things like that. I don't like it.
How is it you and I keep starting on opposite sides of things and keep ending on the same side?
Well, because we're being honest. And we're following where the logic leads us. And the logic should tell you that we should not put absolute faith in the cult of science, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I do think we should have faith in science. But we have to also recognize their limitations. It takes a long time sometimes for the science to be threshed out. It's faster in more modern times, but take a look at the whole heliocentric versus geocentric model of the solar system. It took centuries simply to establish what was at the center of our solar system. Galileo, the guy who mentioned making measurement, you're the center.
You didn't know that? I'm the center of the universe.
Well, there you go. Well, now we have our answer, folks.
The world revolves. What was it? How many narcissists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
One.
None. All they got to do is hold it up, and the whole world revolves around them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there we go. Do we actually know any real narcissists? Maybe not. But
yeah.
So you and I were talking before the show when we were talking about what are facts? Who decides what the facts are? And you were talking about how language changes, and I'm going to fight that as much as possible. I want words to mean what they mean. I don't like it when people start changing the meanings of words. I feel like, and they do that to control the narrative, to be able to say, to come and say, you mean this, and now you think this means this, so now I'm going to co-opt that word to give my position more authority. I'm going to use the authority of that word, and I'm going to try to convince you that my position now follows under that word. It's the same, with the best example that I can say right now is calling speech violence. The left wants to use the power of the word violence and apply it to what people say so that they can control and reduce but what people say that they disagree with. They want to say speech is now violence, so that if you say something, they want it to carry the same weight as actually striking a person. If you say you're ugly, they want to be able to, that's just like you physically hit somebody, and we should be able to respond violently back to you. That type of thing. That's the best example of up front that I have of changing the narrative to bring power and authority, to co-opt power and authority from one meaning and bring it to something that doesn't deserve that. And I feel that that's where we're at when we're talking about fact checkers. Like, these are facts, and we now are the fact checkers. And really, a lot of times it's just I am putting out the opinion that we believe as a fact, and we can call it a fact checker because I can claim it this way, and now I'm co-opting that word. And I hate the shifting of the definition of words, and I feel that it's done to control the narrative, to win an argument, but winning the argument never solves the problem. That's why I hate the changing of words, because it doesn't solve anything. It just shifts everything.
Yeah. So language evolves and the meaning of words changes over time. What do you call a vehicle with four wheels and a cab and a flatbed?
Isn't that a truck?
Yeah, it's a truck, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the original definition of the word truck. The original definition of the word truck, it means some sort of an affair or business. Usually something that's kind of a ruckus or whatever. What's the truck?
Mm-hmm.
That was what the word meant for all these times before. It meant a four-wheel vehicle with a flatbed and a cab. And you've used the word truck, I'm sure, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So does this mean that you're guilty in participating in this language shift?
I didn't shift the language.
Yeah, but you're using
no,
it. Why aren't you going back to the
no.
original meaning of the word?
Again, that's what I'm saying.
Why aren't you speaking Old English?
We are all speaking
Proto-Indo-European. You should be speaking Proto-Indo-European.
You're getting language. You're getting, you know what I mean? Like you're the person who changed that is the problem. That's why I want to stop the change. When the purpose of the change is to affect policy, when the purpose of the change is to illegitimately add power and authority to your words. When you want to change the definition of words to illegitimately add power to your words, power that your words don't mean, but you want it to mean more, so then you change the language. I want that to stop. I don't think that's the same as whatever this country, it's called a truck here in America, and it's called a lorry in England. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, we're going to call this an assault weapon. We're going to make up this term to make it sound scary, so that people, and now here we are 30 years, 40 years later, and everybody just calls it an assault weapon. It's like, that was a made up word. That was a made up word by the left to make the certain weapons that looked a certain way sound scary, and they wanted to add more. They wanted to add more power and more authority to their words, so they co-opted words to add more power to their position by changing that needs to stop.
Sure.
I'm gonna fight that every time I see somebody and I'm like, nope, I am not gonna let you control the narrative. I'm not gonna let you. I'm gonna challenge you on your definition of the word. That's all right. We have your dog wants to say something to me. I know your dog.
Demeter is
your
speaking
liberal
out very
dog
loudly.
is really upset with what I'm saying, and he wants some microphone time. You gonna give him some airtime?
She is upset,
Yeah,
and she's going to claim her own airtime, whether we like it or not.
There I went, assuming gender.
Yeah, there you went. Language. The purpose of language is to communicate, and at what point a person is successful in their communication, the language is doing what it's supposed to do. And people, for whatever reason, they create portmanteaus, right? They create new words, they combine words, they create new meanings and terms. This is just what people do. And it's a natural human thing to do. And new ways to communicate develop all the time. We don't have to like it, but it's just reality.
Right. People are selfish, and you know what? Sometimes they want what somebody else has, so they just steal. It's just what people do. And if the person's in the way, they just kill them. It's just what people do. That's the excuse you have?
Yeah, people do that. Oh, no, I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying that people do it, and, well, we need to pick our battles,
we should try to stop it. Don't you agree that we should try to stop theft? We should try to stop murder? Shouldn't we also try to stop people from changing language that to illegitimately change language? Shouldn't we be fighting to stop that? Or just stepping back and saying, people do it? That's right. If your dog wants to speak in, I understand.
Yeah.
But you think we should just go ahead and let people do that?
What, let people steal and murder? Not necessarily, no.
And change language? Shouldn't we fight?
Yes, we should let people change language. Sure. Yeah, totally let them change language. Yeah, because the purpose of language is to communicate meaning.
Right, but not to change. When you're changing the meaning, then you're not clearly communicating. You're changing it.
Well,
and you're appropriating it, and you're
clearly communicating with the person that you're communicating with, and people are not always communicating with you.
You're distorting language. That's not communicating. You're distorting.
When people use slang, for example.
What's that?
When people use slang, for example, with each other and you don't understand it, oh, well, It's because they're not communicating with you. They're communicating with someone else. It's just like, what do they call it? It's not the millennials, but the kids, they use these words like no cap and based and skibbity and whatever else, right? And, and Riz, they have all these cute little terms they use, and they know what those terms mean. And they're communicating with their peers. I see nothing wrong with them doing that. At the end of the day, now, if they come to me and they use those terms, now I happen to know what the terms mean because I look them up because I want to decipher the code. But as long as they communicate with me with words that I understand, then it's fine with me, because that's the purpose of language and communication. If someone says, hey, I want to ask you a question, yes, what's your question? That's going to be my response.
I don't care.
I'm not going to say you don't ask a question, you ask a question. No. Yeah. What is your
question? If you're an English teacher, you would have to.
Right? But no, I don't think so. I don't even think in the case of an English teacher. I think we just have to resign ourselves to the fact that language changes, and trying to fight it is like trying to mop the ocean. And it's ridiculous because everyone's guilty of that. When it comes to murder and stealing, not everyone's guilty. It's a finite number of people, and there's enough of us who can push back against that. If only, a few hundred or a few thousand people around the world were trying to change language, then maybe I think you would have a reasonable argument there, and we could say, maybe we need to hold the line here.
I do think that's what it is. That the type
and
of
I think to some degree you're correct, Scott.
The type of
I'm going to give you ground here.
Yeah, the type of language changing I'm talking about is not what you're talking about. I'm talking about people who is making a coordinated effort, people who are saying, let's now tie this word to this belief, to this ideology, so that we can
do
get
it all
more
the
authority
time.
and power.
And the right and the left both do it.
When they start saying this is this, we need to stand up as literal people, say, no, that's not what that means.
And yet they all do it. Means. Everyone does it, right and left.
I am not going to, and so that's not what that means. And suddenly I'm the one who's insulting and offending someone. Like, I didn't change the language. You changed it to mean something else. I don't have to go along with it, because that's not what it means. Again, I'm a very strong, if you ever take the Enneagram test or anything like that, I'm an Enneagram 1, which is the moral perfectionist. Like there is a right way to do something. I got into an argument one time with somebody who's like, Scott, your way isn't always the right way. And I'm like, it's not my way. I don't just make up my way. I look and say, what is the right way? How is it done? Let me see, let me study it. Oh, is that how it's done? Then I change my way to match the right way. So it's not, that to me, I don't just like, I'm just going to do it this way, and then from now on, that's the way I do it, and your opinion doesn't mean anything to me. I look and say, I don't care what way I'm going to do it. What's the best way to do it? What's the right way to do it? How is everybody else doing it? This is the way that it's done. All right, I'm going to start there, and I'm going to adjust myself to fit the way that it's done. I just want people to do the bare minimum. I just want drivers to drive 55 and a 55. Like, I just want people to do what they're supposed to do, what we all agree on. We all took that driver's test, and we all agree that we're going to go this speed limit. We all agree that this is what this word means. When people start changing that, when people start, I want what I want, and I'm going to co-opt this meaning so that I can have more power. Like, no, I want to stay with, I want a solid foundation. We can't communicate clearly to each other if we keep changing what things mean. And I want to clearly communicate. Clarity
1 second here.
Politeness.
Hello? Yes?
Wow.
I'll let him know. Okay, wow. Immanuel Kant just called. Immanuel Kant just called, said he wants his whole philosophy back. Categorical imperative. You do what is right regardless of the consequences.
I can't believe you took a phone call during our show.
Well, Scott, it was Immanuel Kant. If it had been John Stuart Mill or someone, I would have said, is this really the best thing for everybody? Maybe not. I'll let him go to voicemail. But Immanuel Kant, you just have to answer.
Right. I'm sure if Lenin called, you would take that call too.
I would stand up and salute and call. Yeah. Oh yeah. Karl Marx. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Comrade Marx. Anyway, I have him scheduled though for after this. So
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, this has been United Opposition. Who fact checks? That's the problem. I saying facts checks. Who fact checks the fact checkers? That's so hard to try to say, but here we are. I want words to mean what they mean. I want facts to be facts. I know I'm on the losing side of this. Marshall, you're right. I know that I will not win this battle, but that's not going to stop me from fighting. I will interrupt you every time you try to use a word that doesn't mean what it means.
I know you will.
Skibbity. All right, until there we go. Until next time, this has been Scott Marshall with the United Opposition, talking on opposite sides of the thing, but still remaining friends. One of these times, I don't know. I hope it never happens that these discussions ever block you and I from being friends. I don't think that's possible. And that's why we do this show.
It's all good. You got Riz, no cap, Scott.
I don't even know what that means. I'm not even going to try to be cool. You go ahead and be cool.
Skibbity.
I'm just gonna hop in my red sports car and drive away. See you guys next time. This is Scott. God bless you guys.